Hey guys, Emily from Autofy. Want to talk to you today about the Shopify QuickBooks Workflow Template. This was set up to make syncing between Shopify and QuickBooks really simple. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and click on Go on our Create Workflow page. Now within this particular sync, we have two separate steps. And this is going to allow us to sync over orders from Shopify to QuickBooks as sales receipts, and also allow us to sync QuickBooks items into Shopify. Once we create this workflow, there are only two steps that are on this page. Don't let everything right here startle you or confuse you. It's a lot of information, but it is very simple once you start going through everything. So on our very first step, what we're looking to do is to sync Shopify orders over to QuickBooks as sales receipts, because typically Shopify orders are going to be paid. We're not creating invoices mostly. There are some of you that do, and that's totally fine. But what we're doing in this template sync is we're syncing orders to sales receipts because we've gotten payment for them. So what this sync is telling us is that we're getting orders from Shopify that have been created or modified since this date and time. And this date and time right here, this is our last successful sync time. This is how Autofy knows what to sync. So it's picking up records that have been modified or created since December 14th of 2017. So that means anything that was created, anything that's been modified since that time will be included in the first process of this first step. Next, we have our when, and the when includes all of our filters. When do we want these Shopify orders to sync over to QuickBooks? Well, in our template sync, we want them to sync over when the financial status is equal to paid, because they're coming over as sales receipts, so they need to come over as paid. They need to have payment. We can also select fulfillment status is equal to nothing, meaning it hasn't been fulfilled yet, and cancel reason equals nothing. We don't want to sync over canceled Shopify orders in our template sync. You do have the ability to remove these filters and add additional, but that is completely up to you. Next, you have your preferences. Do you want these orders to sync over individually, or do you want them to sync over as a daily summary? If it's syncing over as a daily summary, then you're going to have one sync per day that's going to include all the items that were ordered on that one specific day. If you want them to sync individually, Autofy is going to create one QuickBooks receipt for every single order that is syncing over. Next, how do you want Autofy to insert customers? Do you want the actual name of the Shopify customer to be inserted as the QuickBooks customer, or do you want your Shopify store name to be the QuickBooks customer when we're syncing over orders? If you choose my Shopify store name, what's going to happen is Autofy will create a new customer in QuickBooks based off whatever your store name is in Shopify, and all orders or daily summaries will go under that specific store name. So there won't be individual records. This is good if you know that you're going to have thousands and thousands of customers that are utilizing your Shopify store, and you don't necessarily want to keep all of them because they may be one-offs. So when it comes to the QuickBooks item, you have two separate options here. One of them is that you can use a single QuickBooks item named Shopify. So what this is going to do when Shopify is selected is it's just going to look for an item in QuickBooks called Shopify. Everything will be lumped under that one particular item. Now, if you want to use the Shopify item name, that's going to work a little bit differently. It is going to look for the combination in Shopify, which is the product name and the SKU, and it's going to look for that particular item in QuickBooks. Now, if you want, you can record sales tax amount as a line item by itself on an order. If not, you just deselect this checkbox and it will not be included as a separate line item on your order. Now, when it comes to your item descriptions, you do have a couple of options here for how they're going to be entered into QuickBooks. If you use the Shopify product name plus the options, that's going to take the Shopify item information and include all of those separate options that you have listed in Shopify as the description on the line item when that order syncs as a sales receipt. You can use the QuickBooks item description that you already have in QuickBooks associated to that item, or you can use the Shopify product name as the description in QuickBooks. Now, these next few are important. If you're using shipping, which I'm sure you are, handling, discount, and also your deposit to account, you want to make sure that whatever your shipping item name is, that is what this matches right here. You may not actually use the word shipping. You may just say ship, it might be 2 words and it could be shipping charges. So you want to make sure that whatever item name you have in QuickBooks for shipping is what you enter right here, because that is what Autofy is going to look for when it's syncing these orders. Same thing with handling, same thing with discount. And when it comes to the deposit to, of course, our default is undeposited funds. And so this is where it is going to enter that information in QuickBooks. This is so you're able to properly track the flow of money before it actually enters your bank account. And you can choose any QuickBooks chart of account where this money is going to be tracked. And then last but not least, we're inserting these as sales receipts into QuickBooks. So I know that was a lot of information on this very first step, but it is pretty easy when you go through line by line. You just want to double check, make sure you're setting this up exactly how you want, and definitely do single record sync, several different orders, changing your preferences to see how you would prefer to see your sales receipts in QuickBooks. Now, the second step down here is the item step, and this is going from QuickBooks into Shopify. So very similar to the first step, what we're doing is we're getting items from Shopify that have been created or modified since the specific date. Our when, so our filters, we're only wanting to sync items that have an active status of true. We don't want to sync inactive items into Shopify. We only want to sync active items. And one of the preferences that we have here as a default on this step is to do an update only. What that means is that when Autofy goes to do a sync of items into Shopify, if it does not find an item in Shopify with the exact name as the item in QuickBooks, it's not going to insert a new one. It will update existing as long as it can find a match, but it will not insert new. And you can always remove that if you do want Autofy to create new items in Shopify from QuickBooks. And of course, we're inserting these in to Shopify as items. Now, before I click sync, I am going to change my dates because I may have a lot of information in here all the way from 2019. So I'm just going to set this back to October. I believe I probably have some orders in here since October, and maybe some new items as of this month. And this is just going to help keep my sync time down. I don't really have too many things that I need to sync over at this moment. But once you change that created or modified time, this is now going to affect the number of records that get picked up in our sync. So now, when I run this full sync, which we'll do here in just a moment, we're only going to be getting orders that have been created or modified since October. And with items, we're only going to be getting items that have been created or modified since December 1st. So a lot smaller amount of records to be pulled. Before I hit the sync button, I want to go ahead and click Save. Now that I've saved my workflow, I'm going to hit the big green sync button. Now we're kind of going away from best practices here by hitting the green sync button at the very beginning. You definitely want to test each one of these steps several times by utilizing single record syncs to make sure that the data is coming over exactly how you're expecting it to. You don't want to go ahead and hit sync the very first time and then sync all these records and everything doesn't sync the way you want it to. So definitely after you've done the single record sync on each step individually several times, then feel free to run a full sync. Then I'm going to go ahead and click this big green sync button. And I'm going to get this pop-up, and it's going to show me what's going on with my sync. So my start sync process is beginning. Now it's validating my connections to Shopify and QuickBooks. And depending on the number of orders that I might have going back to October, it may take some time to pull all of those orders. And now we can see these have all filtered out because none of them are paid. The sync is going to continue to run. And now what it's going to do is it's going to be selecting items from QuickBooks. And there may be several different items in QuickBooks that it's going to try to pick up and sync over to Shopify as well. As you can see, it's picking up several items. Some are failing because the items were not found. We do have update only turned on. We have other items that are filtering out, and we had an item that did update. We do have the green dot, which means it was successful. So that is the Shopify QuickBooks Workflow Template sync in a nutshell. Definitely recommend that you guys hit that subscribe button down below so that way you get notified of any new videos. And if you have questions about how this works, please reach out to us at support@getautofy.com.